What a pleasure it is to move from Bob now out to Washington State. Laura Johnson's joining us today to talk with us about the marketing success and the work done in Washington State. Take it away, Laura.
Good morning. I'm going to make sure I can move these slides. There we go. All right, good morning. I'm going to talk about how answering a couple questions before our agency launches a marketing project has helped us be more strategic and successful in our communication efforts. And those questions are pretty simple. What's the problem and what can we leverage to fix it? And I'll start with a little background on how we landed on those questions and show an example of how we have applied them. So in a perfect world, all our marketing projects would result from like a really rigorous strategic communications planning process. So if X is our starting point, we would take the time to go through all these steps of doing the assessment of our marketing needs, researching our target audience and their values, identifying the actions we want them to take, and all of those steps would eventually lead us to identifying the best marketing solution or product to help us achieve our objective. But in reality, a lot of us are just kind of hanging on by the skin of our teeth at our jobs, which we just have way too much to do, and taking the time for planning often just gets thrown out the window. So it's understandable that at our agency, we've had a tendency to handle our marketing work in a pretty common way, which is just kind of, jump right over all the strategic planning stuff. It's time consuming, sometimes boring, and jump right into working on some shiny marketing object, be it a video, a website, a publication, without giving a whole lot of thought to whether that product or that marketing solution was the right one for our unique marketing needs. But the problem with that is we just can't afford to throw money at whatever marketing idea sounds good at the time without knowing if it's actually going to do us any good. We don't have the luxury of having a budget like that. So given both the constraints on our time and our budget, we often need a middle ground approach for our marketing efforts, something in between that rigorous strategic communications planning process and our leap then look approach. And that's where answering the questions of what's the problem and what can we leverage to fix it has helped us. It's just two questions, which is manageable, and they've really helped lead us to some pretty cool marketing products. So starting with the first question of what's the problem? And by that I mean, what's the problem that's making you feel like some kind of marketing or communication effort is needed? And the most important thing about this question is to be really specific in the answer. We found that if our answer was too broad, it's still really overwhelming and pretty impossible to know which marketing idea is going to get us the biggest bang for our buck. For example, one of the first answers to this question was, well, the general public needs to know who the State Conservation Commission and conservation districts are. And that's definitely a problem for us, but it didn't help us narrow down potential marketing solutions. So if each of these doors symbolized an idea, all those ideas were still all over the map. And with this broad of a problem statement and that broad of an audience, we just didn't know which ideas were worth exploring and potentially investing in. So we had to get more specific about who we really wanted to reach. And one problem that we narrowed in on was that residents in our urban and suburban areas, and specifically new and future landowners, needed to see the value of voluntary conservation work. And that answer gave us a better sounding board to bounce off potential marketing ideas. Any idea that wasn't really well suited to meet or to reach that urban, suburban audience and potentially a younger demographic could come off the list. So then with a better idea of our problem and who we needed to reach, we could move on to question 2. So what can we leverage to fix our problem? And it's kind of a two-part question. In the first part, we wanted to identify our assets and gaps. So what does our agency and what the districts already have going for us that could help us reach those new and future landowners in urban areas? and where do we have gaps that prevent us from reaching them. And for the second part, we would then try to identify a partner who's trying to solve the same or similar problem and can also help us fill in those gaps. So for assets, we knew we had great conservation stories to tell, and landowners, really dynamic speakers. They were willing to tell those stories. They're excited to tell their story of working in voluntary conservation. We knew that our product of voluntary conservation was a great feel-good product, but we had limited time and money, and that limited our ability to plan, develop, and probably more importantly, distribute and promote our stories to our target audience. So, kind of a long story short, we ended up hitching a ride with a TV show called Washington Grown. And it's a program that uses the story of food to better kind of build connections between urban audiences and Washington's farm industry. So each episode is a half hour, and it tells the story of a specific Washington grown crop. It takes viewers into the field where they meet the farmers who grow that crop, and then into the kitchen of a Washington restaurant where they see a chef prepare a dish using that crop. And we had found out that the show producers, we already knew they shared our target audience, but they also, they're professionals in planning and promoting and distributing stories. They had a really talented production crew, and we learned that they were looking for stories for their show, and were looking for more partners to financially support it. And we ended up coming to an agreement where, in exchange for our agency providing $5,000 to the show, we got to pick the story, setting, and spokespeople for a 3.5-minute video segment that would air as part of one of their half-hour episodes. And their crew would shoot and edit the story, or shoot and edit the video, and then we would get a chance to review it and make sure that they'd captured all the key messages in the story that we wanted to communicate. So as a result, that all started in 2016, and since then, we've completed 3 videos that feature voluntary conservation success stories, all featuring conservation districts and the landowners they've worked with that have aired on the show. And we have a 4th video with them that's going to be airing on season 6 of Washington Grown within the next month. On TV, these episodes, both through when they air the first time and then in the reruns that they show, have reached tens of thousands of households in urban and suburban areas across Washington, with the largest audiences in Seattle and Spokane. And recently, the show started reaching thousands more across the nation, as a national PBS channel just picked up the show this summer, which is super exciting. They also, the episodes also air on Facebook Live and on YouTube. So they reach thousands more viewers there, and 55% of those viewers are between 25 and 44 years old, which we hope helps us reach those potential new and future landowners. And we also get our own copy of just that 3.5-minute video segment to use and share however we want. So we've been able to take those to meetings and show them at conferences. And I know at NASCA, when I presented this work in October, I was able to show one of the videos, but for both Ray and me, our experience of trying to show videos during a webinar has been a nightmare at best. So Ray was kind enough to send you guys links to the videos by email a week or so ago. So if you follow those links, that'll take you to our Vimeo account where you can watch examples of those videos. And the last thing I wanted to share about this was that the example I'm using today, yes, we landed on a video there, but it's not always going to be the answer. We've used these questions to lead us to other marketing products too, and a lot of those you'll find we have on our website, a marketing toolkit, and I've got the web address up there on the screen. But there's several tabs of a bunch of different templates and resources that our agency has created, working with a group of conservation district folks, where we try to figure out what the biggest challenges are for conservation districts and their marketing needs. And then we kind of look within our conservation family for what we can leverage to create those tools and share those tools among ourselves. And then on the right-hand side is a screenshot of our photo gallery. So again, we were realizing that one of the problems we had with our marketing materials and districts were experiencing was they just didn't have enough photos to pull from to create some really beautiful outreach and marketing displays and materials. And so we launched a photo contest because we knew we could leverage the talents of several photographers among our conservation district family and field staff that are going out in Washington. So we've been able to leverage their talents and host a annual photo contest that's helped us build this photo gallery of photos that all districts can use. And I think now we've got, I don't remember, I think it's around 700 photos in there or something. So yeah, it hasn't always led us to videos, led us to several different products, and it's just been a lot more manageable way for us to still be strategic and not completely skip the planning process for our marketing.
Laura, thank you so much for your presentation. And you might give a plug too, not only for this outstanding material that's been developed, but my understanding is NASCA's communications committee is also getting pretty active. And you've got a state communications committee also that you have in your state. You might mention those two things while we wait for some questions to come in. Mm-hmm.
Sure. So for several years, I think about 7 years now, our agency has sponsored a communications group that is made up of conservation district staff and board supervisors from across the state. And we meet via web meeting and phone conference, and our purpose really is getting at these two questions. We look at what are the highest and top priorities for building conservation districts' capacity to market themselves, and then we look among ourselves and then just among our network of communication staff out in the CD world for folks who can help us. So, for example, one thing we had landed on was districts needed help with their media relations, and we have some staff among conservation districts who had backgrounds or degrees in media relations, and so we formed a little subcommittee to build a timeline of when you start reaching out to media before an event. We have 2 different press release templates in our marketing toolkit now. So that group's it's a wonderful sounding board as a state agency, and for me and my job, it's a wonderful sounding board to really keep a pulse on what are the top priorities for districts in their communication and marketing needs, and what can we pull together to make it easier for them to do that part of their work. And then so I think starting this month and in the coming year, we're going to ramp up the NASCA Communications Committee again, and we'll be looking at how members most want to receive communications from NASCA, and the type of information they most want to see. We're working on a video to promote membership and attendance at NASCA conference. So I think there'll be a lot more to come once that group rejoins in the next month.
So if someone wanted to join and had a desire or talents in this area, would they contact you, Laura, or would they contact Mike and Aaron in our main office?
Probably Aaron and me.
Okay, sure. Contact you or Aaron, and there's room for communications committee members for NASCA. And then, Laura, you make such an excellent point that when you put out the call or form a communications working group within your state, oftentimes it's individuals that have had that experience in industry, private industry or agencies that are conservation district board members and or staff now. And you found a treasure trove, didn't you, of folks in your state?
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually have formed a directory now that we can sort by area of expertise. So if you're looking for somebody who has experience building a website with WordPress, you can sort this database by WordPress. You can sort it by community-based social marketing. You can sort it by media relations and find supervisors or staff within Washington's conservation family who have expertise and are willing to be a contact and mentor for you if you're wanting to learn more or do a project in that area.
Excellent, thank you. One question came in is this particular webinar being recorded? And yes, it is, and it will be on the NASCA website, as well as several of our other webinars and the presentations made at state staff sharing, idea sharing sessions. So thanks, Laura.